If a festival is free, quite a few people show up. If crowds get out of hand, the police usually set up barriers. If you run late, you get bottlenecked at the entrance. If tickets cost an arm and a leg, people badmouth the organizers. If you forget your wristband, you battle the lines again. If the train is delayed, we will be running against the clock. If the concert is in the boonies, it will be a hassle to get there. If more friends come, the more the merrier, and we will have a blast. If the price goes up, we will need to weigh the pros and cons. If the prep goes wrong, the launch will get off to a rough start. If I lived in Nevada, I would go to Burning Man every year. If tickets didn't cost a pretty penny, I would go out on a whim. If I weren't so fed up, I would stay and hang out longer. If crowds didn't stress me out, I would enjoy stadium events. If I weren't in over my head, I would help you start from scratch. If we hadn't gotten bottlenecked, we would have made it in on time. If my plan hadn't fallen through, we would have gone to Labor Day weekend events. If I had known it would be an accident waiting to happen, I would have stayed home. If the weather had cooperated, we would have had just a blast. If she hadn't been so long-winded, we would have enjoyed it more. If I were more into big crowds, I would have loved that festival. If he weren't such a flake, he would have shown up instead of disappearing. If she were better at planning, we would have avoided the hassle. If I were more patient, I would have waited instead of running off. If they were more prepared, they would have avoided a rough start. If we hadn't missed the train, we would be relaxing instead of running late now. If I hadn't spent all my bucks, I would be living large today. If the plan hadn't fallen through, we would be enjoying the festival now. If she hadn't gotten sick, she would be psyched for tonight. If the organizers hadn't cut down staff, lines would be moving faster now. If people get blown away by the music, they stay longer at the festival. If crowds go out of control, security steps in. If kids grow up in the boonies, they adapt quickly. If a teacher is long-winded, students zone out. If someone wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, everything goes wrong. If snacks run out, people get fed up fast. If trains get bottlenecked, commuters miss connections. If a show is over the top, it draws their eye immediately. If people have a chip on their shoulder, conflicts happen easily. If someone plays around with ideas, creativity improves. If we run against the clock, we will miss the opening act. If ticket checkers show up, you will pay through the nose. If the lines get longer, people will start bad-mouthing the organizers. If the event is kind of random, we will see how it goes. If you keep your eyes on the schedule, you will get in smoothly. If we catch the train, we will be right on time. If she keeps racking her brain, she will figure it out. If prices rise again, fans will be blown away in a bad way. If we prep earlier, the launch will be smoother. If he keeps showing off, people will get turned off. If I lived near the stadium, I would go every weekend. If crowds didn't stress me out, I would enjoy it more. If tickets weren't a pretty penny, I would invite friends. If I weren't so low-key, I would get on my soapbox more often. If she weren't in over her head, she would organize it better. If that outfit weren't so over the top, I would wear it. If he weren't all over the place, he would finish faster. If the rules weren't so strict, we would chill out. If I didn't dread crowds, I would attend more festivals. Parking weren't such a hassle, I would drive. If I had known it was an accident waiting to happen, I would have stayed home. If we hadn't gotten stuck, we would have made it in on time. If she hadn't blown all her bucks, she would have joined us. If the weather hadn't turned, we would have had a nicer time. If he hadn't gotten busted, he would have kept selling to minors. If my plan hadn't fallen through, we would have gone to Burning Man. If the system hadn't crashed, we would have launched earlier. If I hadn't gotten sick, I would have enjoyed the concert. If they had listened, they would have avoided the problem. If we had hopped on the bus, we would have skipped the lines. If I were more spontaneous, I would have gone on a whim. If she were more organized, she would have avoided the rough start. If he weren't so introverted, he would have hung out with us. If I were more confident, I would have put myself out there. If they were more open-minded, they would have enjoyed the culture shock. If he were less strict, he would have let us chill out. If I were more social, I would have met more people. If she were into crowds, she would have loved that festival. If he were better at planning, he would have avoided the hassle. If I were more patient, I would have waited. If we hadn't missed the train, we would be relaxing now. If I hadn't spent all my money, I would be living large today. If the event hadn't fallen through, we would be having fun now. If she hadn't gotten sick, she would be psyched for tonight. If he hadn't gotten busted, he would still be working there. If they hadn't cut down staff, lines would be moving faster. If I hadn't caught that cold, I would be feeling great today. If the weather had cooperated, we would be outdoors now. If the plan had gone through, we would be celebrating. If she had practiced, she would be confident now.